What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, as we have not one, but two guests on today. Yes, two guests, which will be a first for Set Point, having two guests on when it comes to the live stream of the show. Also, we got some VNL to discuss, as the men's U.S. team did pretty solid, but there's only one undefeated team when it comes to the VNL. Which team is it? And are there any winless teams? Probably not. And the women's VNL gets going tomorrow, as will the U.S. be able to build off of that one win that they have, or will it be some rocky going? But we have Dana Retzke returning, and then we also have Teran Rodriguez and Brion Butler making their debut. And we also have the Palm Beach Passion doing big things in the ACC League. Will they be able to rise up that momentum to the finish line as we head into week 4? And we have all that next. I'm about to start up the volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your feed for all that sports. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, eSports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out our amazing sponsors. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday, wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way in episode 303 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, make sure to subscribe to IE Sports Radio on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. It'll help boost the algorithm, especially of this show. And on behalf of everybody, I would greatly appreciate it. We would all greatly appreciate it. And also make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for all of the latest sports news, our blog, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our merchandise shop, where you got t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and so much more. Also, check out our Hall of Fame, where yours truly is inductee number 10. And also check out our blogs, which had a couple being released courtesy of Ralph Calise, Adam Karnick, and a bunch of others as well. For the last 11 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports stations around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Make sure to follow Set Point on social media, on X at set_point.ie. And you can follow me personally on X as well at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can also follow Set Point on Instagram as well at set_point.iesr. I'm trying to grow that as well, but I digress. So without any further delay, I have been keeping my two guests waiting for way too long, but it's time to bring on not one, but two of my guests. So my first guest is the founder of Middle Hitter Volleyball. He's a fantastic guy. He does an amazing job with his website. He's had that website for almost 20 years. Next year will be year 20. And he just does an amazing job helping promote the game of volleyball, especially on the lower levels. And my second guest is also a contributor for Middle Hitter as well as an assistant for my first guest. And he's also the team manager for Miracosta's boys volleyball team, which are pretty much going to be national champions. So without any further delay, welcoming my two guests, Kevin Pratte and Devin Busam. How you doing, fellas?
I'm good.
What a D-Bus. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I can run through a brick wall after that introduction, the music, the ads. But hey, it's funny, Teran. I noticed, correct me if I'm wrong, Lake Elsinore Storms was mentioned in the advertisement. Is that right?
Yes.
So I grew up going to those games as a child. So I was like, all right, Lake Elsinore, sweet. So I digress. Sorry, but
it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, welcome, Kevin and Devin. I appreciate you both for being on here. I also appreciate Devin for also wanting to jump on as well. I think you both are a great dynamic duo. Here's where you can find them on Instagram. That's Kevin's information. And then you could follow Devin on Instagram as well. But before we get on into this little interview, just in case the feds are watching, these are the thoughts and opinions of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and of Kevin Pratte and Devin Busam, and not the thoughts and opinions of any fourth, fifth, or heaven forbid, sixth party. So just in case the feds are watching, which they kind of are sometimes, just got to get that out of the way. But with that being said, Kevin and Devin, the floor is all yours. Talk to the people, who you are, what you do, and pretty much how you got into volleyball.
D-Bus, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. My name is Devin Busam. My nickname is D-Bus because my first initial is D, and then my first three letters are Bus. I went to Miracosta for 4 years, just recently graduated, and I got into volleyball when my parents took me down to the beach, Santa Monica Beach. I was super young, just playing on the beach, and I loved it, but I didn't know how I could play. Figured it out. I got a call from a good buddy of mine, Cooper Keene, who went to Miracosta with me, and gave me a call in the 8th grade. Hey, would you be interested in playing volleyball? I'm like, let me go ask my parents. And I knew Cooper's mom played volleyball, so then that's kind of how it all started, how I kind of wanted to play. And then when Cooper asked me, I'm like, dude, let's do it. And then didn't really think much of it. I liked it. It's like a love-hate at first, but then I started loving it ever since. Went to Maricosta, did not make the team my freshman year. I'm like, shoot, what am I going to do? After a lot of thoughts, lots of thinking about it, I asked the coaches if I could be the team manager. And then I took that on for 4 years. Every year got better each year, freshman year to senior year. Obviously, teams got a lot better, and I grew up better as an individual. And was really grateful to finally win it off my senior year with a CIF Southern Section champion, regional championship, and a state championship. So it feels really good to win all 3 of those. Didn't go 3 for 3 in our tournaments, but not worried about that. But just really extremely grateful to be on here as well. And just also really grateful that I got to go to school like Maricosta for 4 years. So.
Well, D-Bus, I don't know how I can follow that. That's pretty good. First off, Teran, thanks so much for having me. I'm a big fan. Anyone who covers the sport and is passionate about youth volleyball, women's volleyball, beach volleyball, men's volleyball, you're a winner in my book. Keep up the good work. I listen to the show, listen to what you do, and you're just doing some great work. So it's a privilege to be on. I love the intro. It was so kind of you, but before I get going about how I got involved in volleyball, I've had the pleasure of taking over middle hitter, and it's been incredible. But I have to give it up for Jerry. He is a wonderful man in Chicago, and he actually ran it for 19 years, Teran. And what happened, of all things, and I think Rob on the mic. Rob on the mic was doing a podcast. Jay was on it. Dan Friend, Brad Rostratter. I know you guys know all those names. They're men's volleyball coaches in the NCAA. They're like, we've reached out to all these compliance directors, and we want someone to take over middle hitter. And I'm an avid listener. And I was like, I got a lot of irons in the fire right now and a lot of things going. Middle hitter would be really fun to take over. And I kind of had a vision. And Dan Friend and Jay Hosek were nice enough to call Jerry, and then Jerry and I had a ton of Zooms and conversations, and he let me start running it. And it's been a passion project, Teran, and I love it. And we've kind of remodeled the website, if you may, but Jerry's been nothing but supportive, and I hope we can continue to take middle hitter to greater heights. But if you may, I'll tell you how I got involved in volleyball. I see you have a beach setting in the background, which I love. I was from Hemet originally, Teran, which is about 2 hours inland from the beach. And my friends were playing beach volleyball. They were adults, and I was with my friend, and I was too nervous to ask to play. And then that wonderful lady, Brenda Smith, who I still know, said, Kevin, you should never be afraid to ask to play. We want you to play. We want you to enjoy it. And I was in 3rd grade, and ever since then, I kind of started picking up with volleyball and playing. And for the longest time, I wasn't very good, but I just grew in love with it. I played club. I played for the Corona Mavericks, for Phil Sutherland, played at Hemet High School. Then I got to play at the University of the Pacific, and sadly, they cut their program. But I had a great experience, and they cut it after I was done. So kind of long-winded. Then I got involved in coaching. I'm still teaching and doing things like my foundation, middle hitter, and helping kids play college volleyball. And got to meet amazing people like you, Teran, and also got to meet, Devin, D-Bus in the volleyball world. So life is good. So thanks for having me on.
I greatly appreciate having you both on, and great intros right there. So we pretty much talked about middle hitter, and you pretty much talked about it. So that was my mistake when it came to the intro. But what is middle hitter? And talk to me about all of your other organizations like KP's Crew, the Kevin Pratte Foundation, and also talk about your camps. Give everything a plug. Nothing hold back. Either.
All right. Well, I'm going to probably need my good friend D-Bus to help me with some of this. But I'll start with middle hitter. That's fine. Middle hitter was founded 20 years ago. The main ingredients, if you may, for middle hitter was to identify and highlight a student athlete that's a junior or senior in high school and show where they're going to college. And then those college coaches can look, or grandma and grandpa or anyone, to the website And if you look at middle hitter, that's kind of the foundation of middle hitter. You can look up every year from 2025 all the way to like 2023 or 2026, excuse me. And you can look up like, oh, that's where Jason Jablonski went to UCI during that year. That's where, Tyler Crabb, who went to Long Beach. Okay, we can see what year. It's all on there. It's really cool. And so that's one thing I promised to Jerry that I would never let go. But what I also tried to do is write a little on there. My dad's a journalist, Teran, and I have a passion for journalism. So I'm starting to write a little bit on there, some blogs. We've done a star ranking system, which I have a podcast that explains that. And I think it's kind of cool, Teran, to star rank athletes for our sport. It kind of brings value to our sport and gets more people going. Not everyone likes their ranking, or not everyone doesn't like that they're not ranked, but we have a system. We have a lot of coaches involved, and that's kind of cool. And then we put a lot of camps on there. So I put every university's camp, like, for example, Menlo, USC, UCLA, Loyola, and then I have some other camps. And I think this would be a good plug for D-Bus. He went to last year's camp. Can you just describe what the camps are like, D-Bus, and I can kind of chime in just the camps?
Yeah, so I went to the camp over the last summer, July 13th and 14th, and it was very competitive. Everyone was really bought in and really wanted to play volleyball, and everyone's just so knowledgeable, which is the fun part, and it's just very fun. Like, the best part, in my opinion, truthfully, like, besides the competitive volleyballness, was seeing all the kids from different states that come in for these camps, that travel in and just want to play volleyball with all different kinds of people. And just like the positive aspect of it, like, I never saw anyone having to like no one showed that they're like having a bad day, showing it really well. But the kids just more looked like they just had fun playing the sport of volleyball that they love, getting to talk to these coaches that they've definitely seen before, but like definitely probably been too afraid to. But just getting that confidence and just knowing to feel loose on the court, and also just a lot of things differently than we normally do during like a college volleyball. Like, I went to Long Beach, UCLA, USC camps when I was younger, but we didn't do a lot of the things that we did at the Kevin Pratte camp. So it was showing how every camp is different than the other. But I think KP is going to be doing a really good job with those camps for years to come.
Well, I appreciate it, D-Bus. And by the way, Alan Knipe at Long Beach, John Hawks at UCLA, Coach Nygaard, they run amazing camps. I've been on their staffs before. I think what's maybe a little unique about our camp, and every camp is different, and all camps are great. We hire college coaches like from USC, UCLA, MIT, and we have all these camps. And this year, Teran, they're going to be in Orlando, Brooklyn, Sacramento, Colorado, and Nashville. And the whole point is like, let's grow the game. And if you go to that middle hitter website, it's open to all boys, and you can see what colleges are going to each camp. And I think what's nice for the college coaches, Teran, is I take all the heavy lifting of get everyone signed up, get them in the gym, rent the gym, make sure all the waivers are signed, feed the coaches. They get to just kind of come and coach, and they do a great job. And again, I can't stress enough, though, those camps like at Loyola, Penn State, Ohio State, those are great camps too. And I think students should go to those too. Mine's just one of many. But, D-Bus said that there's good vibes there. I just try to kind of keep that KP, keeping positive vibe going, and fun music being played, really fun drills. Last year we had about, I want to say 70 or 75 kids at camp, trying to get those numbers at each location. And some of those locations like Brooklyn and Nashville and Colorado, they need some growth in the sport. So we're trying to bring some great coaches like from NYU, USC, UCLA, and those PFW, those types of programs. So that's a little of that. I'll explain if I may, about KP's crew. So when I was I'm 39. When I was 30, I was turning 30, and I was like, man, I want like a shirt for my birthday, and we were doing an 80s theme. So we came up with KP's crew, and everyone at my party, my birthday party, there was like 45, 50 people. They all wore it. And then I started giving those shirts out to like my students as a PE teacher when they like did something well. Then when I, got going with my recruiting service that I'll probably talk about in a bit, I was like, man, it'd be cool to give some shirts. And I just honestly, Teran, I just give them out for free, and I just like, growing the game and people being exciting. And I'm going to have to hook you up with one of these somehow, Teran, but you got KP's crew right here. And it's kind of fun. That's what they wear at the camps. And D-Bus is so helpful, and he goes and passes them out. It's just cool. And we also I got my KP's crew emblem on my shirt here for my polos. And then I also got the brand's taken off. I got a sticker that I give the students sometimes. So kind of been going crazy with the KP's crew gear, but it's been fun and it's a positive thing. And can you talk a little bit about the shirts and how we pass them out, D-Bus?
Yeah, of course. Normally before every big tournament, 3 days, we are going to do it for nationals probably again. But we have these tournaments at the tournaments. We pass out the T-shirts. Me and Kevin both promote it on our Instagram stories. I make sure I turn my Instagram notifications on. I'm walking around with a few KP shirts, making sure we're getting pictures. We're making sure we're both tagging me and KP in each photo. So we're making sure we're just trying to show, and then just trying to be actively on the move and just trying to make sure the kids that really want a T-shirt and want to make sure they get it, make sure they have one. And then the cool aspect is I remember last year, I wish I got a team picture, but the following game at the showcase tournament last year, I gave a T-shirt to my whole Rockstar team, and we all wore them for warm-ups in the following game. So that was pretty sweet to see a team like ours wearing that.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool, Teran, and my lovely girlfriend caught wind of this, and she was like, this is pretty funny. And so you'll love this, Teran. She designed shoes with a KP logo here. And then you got the keeping positive, so when I'm out on the recruiting trail working with kids, KP here. So it's just been fun, but really it's just about growing the game and being positive, and there's people like D-Bus who's more positive than D-Bus. He's great. Everyone that meets him is like, this kid's great. He's a fantastic manager. And, it's been really fun. But one of the reasons I do think, Teran, it's been fun is, I want to be strategic and respectful of all clubs and respectful of high schools, and not just come in and be like, KP here, wear these shirts, all these things. And what I've done is I've created a foundation, and it's a 501c nonprofit foundation. We raise some money, and then we get student athletes, boys volleyball players in the high school realm, and they apply for scholarships. Because as you know, Teran and D-Bus, club volleyball can be very expensive, and there's expensive travels. So we raise this money, and these kids write an essay to our panel. They have to send their transcript, and they have to say why they're worthy of a scholarship. And what we do is we have people on the panel, and every year we're going into year 3. The kids that have won the foundation scholarship are now part of the process of who gets to win it and gets to be in KP's crew. And we get to give them some money for their club fees, but I think what's even cooler, Teran, is I help them get into a college and play college volleyball. And it doesn't just stop there. We have Ben Hutchinson, who's going to be entering his sophomore year at Ohio State, who is a Kevin Pratte Foundation winner, and Dozie Anone from Dallas. He's playing for Fort Valley, and they made it to the playoffs. And I know that he's getting more and more popular. He's a starting libero. And he called me and said, hey, Kevin, I really am passionate about coaching. I want to get still involved in the game. And it is so touching. He's going to go work the Pittsburgh camp with Dan Fisher. I played for Dan at Pacific. He is going to the TCU camp. He's going to the Georgia camp. He's going to the Texas camp, and these are all women's volleyball. He's going to go work my camp in Sacramento, the KP's camp. And it's very fulfilling, Teran, when, some people might be like, oh, he just gives them scholarship and that's it. And no. Like, it's kind of like a family and a foundation, and Dosie's still in touch with us. So there's just a lot of things. And I love teaching PE. I'm doing that still. I love coaching volleyball when I can. And then lastly, I do have a business where I run a recruiting service, and I help kids. They come to me. I'm their recruiting coordinator, and I help them play for college volleyball programs. And we've had a lot of success stories there. So I just appreciate you giving me this opportunity to kind of talk about all these things. As you know, there's a lot of irons in the fire. I'm doing kind of a lot of things, but I'm passionate about it. I love volleyball. I love making an impact. And all those things I did talk to you about, it's about people, it's about being positive, and it's about growing the game. And it's about meeting people like you and D-Bus. It's been really fun. So thanks for giving me this platform to share.
You got it, Kevin. And the head honcho of iSports Radio, Larry B, says that your website, Middle Hitter, is a really cool website. And then he also says that he loves the cause. He says that's awesome. So you're definitely doing some great things with that as well. And I applaud you, definitely.
Well, anyone who wants to get involved, it's not necessarily that we just need money. We need to spread awareness. We need, helps with advertisements or just support, really appreciate Larry to say that's awesome. That's a great cause. Like, there's a lot of ways to help. And it doesn't always mean, oh, Kevin's just going to need you to write a check for the foundation. No. There's a lot of ways to do it. For example, D-Bus's wonderful mother went and spoke to a ton of athletes about NIL at a camp that we were running. And it was a really good segment, and she crushed it because she's very knowledgeable at that. And she donated her time, and that was really cool. So there's a lot of ways to get involved.
I want to touch upon something that you actually released, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, and that was the Fab 50 released on a volleyball magazine, as well as the rising stars of the class of 2026, 27, and 28. So how tough is it to compile that list full of like a lot of talented players and whatnot? And do you sometimes get complaints when it comes to, oh, you forgot to mention this kid or that kid or so on and so forth?
Yeah, Teran, I think that's a great question. And I'm sure, D-Bus will have an opinion, because I know that he's heavily involved in Southern California volleyball, and he sees schools like Marist come at the Karch Karai tournament and stuff. Let me be clear on this. I think lists are necessary, Teran, and I think recognition is important. I think every student athlete should have an opportunity to be recognized. I also think that parents and coaches admire when their kids are recognized. So I get that. I would love to recognize every kid, and it's hard. And you're sitting there going, oh, man. Another thing is, I just want to make it clear, is there's really good directors in our country that are all across the United States that are very knowledgeable, and they've watched these. And I am heavily involved, and they're looking at the list. I also have a lot of college coaches on that, and they look at the list. So it can be, it's a daunting task to pick 50. Whenever you do 50, someone says, well, this one should have been 51 or 52, or this one should have been 47. I'm proud of the work ethic we did. I'm proud of what we did, but I always think it could get better. And it was my actually first year taking a stab at Fab 50. And I appreciate that Volleyball Magazine gave me that task. And I know that there's ways that I can always tighten the screws and get better at it. But, I do. My dad was a journalist, Teran. I know it comes with the territory. When you create a list, people are going to be critical of it. There's also going to be a lot of people that write you and say, thank you that I'm on the list. So, I take those criticisms, I take them and I go, okay, how can we get better the next year? And, but I hope you could admire this. When people are being critical or something, that means they're reading it. That means they're engaged. That means they care. I would just, the teacher in me and the type of person I am, I think D-Bus knows this too. I'm a pretty positive guy. So I think you can always go at someone as an angle of approach of remaining positive. But, we will do the Fab 50 again next year. We will continue to do list. And I'm glad you asked about that, because I know that was it's funny though, like I'll write all these other articles and I think they get read, and don't get me wrong, but people love their list, So I know D-Bus, you paid attention to the list. What do you think?
I thought the list was pretty good. Obviously, people are going to have their opinions. A lot of people thought I had something to do with it because I obviously know KP really well, but the truth is I didn't. I could agree with a lot of those things. I really wish, obviously, there's like a few people that we missed, but otherwise, I really look forward to it every single year that it came out. A little funny thing is my uncle Keith Busam, probably not a lot of people know him, but went on to UC Santa Barbara, and he mentioned to me how one of his favorite highlights was becoming a Fab 50 his senior year, and how much that meant to him, and how, like, even though volleyball didn't stick much with him after, but just having that for the rest of his life is one of his favorite accomplishments. But overall, I'm really great. Like, it's really cool for me getting to see all the people I know every single year, and it just continues and progresses with every year with the better competition, where all these kids are coming from. Like, I'm like, oh, I've heard of these names before, but I'm like, oh wow, they're from this region. So it's very cool how it's not just really all Southern California biased.
And D-Bus, I think it's really cool you tell that story, and I respect it a lot. And I do understand, Teran, that people really like that list. But I have another story for you. Like, I never made that list, Teran. And to be brutally honest, like, I probably should have. If I was a Division I NCAA MPSF starting outside hitter, I probably should have made that list, but I didn't. And that's okay. Like, I still put it as a log in the fire, and I was like, okay, I didn't make the list, and so the advice I give to people if they don't make the list, it's like, hey, okay, and like, let's move forward next day. And again, I think those lists are necessary, and I try to take them as seriously as I can, but they're really hard to do. So, but thanks for giving me this platform to talk about it. That's cool.
Yeah, and no problem. And for those that do are that type of guy that says, oh, you missed this person or that person, not everyone is going to get recognized. There's only a few spots. You can't, like, everyone has to realize that there's only 50 spots, and it's not going to get bigger, because then people are going to say, oh, can you expand it more, and then more, and then more, and then more, and then more. It's just so much work for you. So I respect the list. I saw it, and I was like, all right, I could rocks with this. And honestly, if I were to do it, it probably would have just been just every player from Southern California. So I respect your list, and I applaud you, and I applaud anyone that does like a list regarding any sport and whatnot, because it's never easy to only put like 50 players, because everyone is going to have their critiques and whatnot. And I, as a journalist, back when I graduated from Long Beach State, have learned to take constructive criticism well, and to learn to use it to better myself and to make sure I don't make mistakes ever. But I digress.
Yeah, and Teran, I'm on other list, and I'm not the driving force, or it doesn't have my name on it, but I'm on a list that's coming out really soon. There's some really high-end coaches on that list that were like Coach of the Year, incredible club directors. We see everyone's list, and then we do a Zoom about it. Everyone has a different list. There's like 15 of us on the panel, and that's why lists are hard. Like, they're not easy. So for those of you who made it, awesome. For those of you who didn't, keep plugging away. And I again, thank you for allowing us to talk about it. That's kind of cool.
Absolutely. And that's a great message for those that didn't make it, and for those that did make it. So anyway, jumping over to another topic, being the SoCal Cup, I want to talk about that. That was actually last week, and that's actually club volleyball. So were there any like standouts when it comes to the SoCal Cup and whatnot? And did you like get a chance to see that? Because I know I've been busy trying to like watch VNL and then celebrate Father's Day and so on and so forth. But did you all catch any of the SoCal Cup?
Well, D-Bus, why don't you chime in first? I know I was there too, but why don't you go ahead first?
I was there for a little bit. Got to watch a little bit. Got to watch a lot more 16s, 17s. Watch a little bit of 16s, like the incoming guys getting recruited. Watched a lot more of the 17s. Then got to watch the 18s, obviously. But I mean, the 16 divisions, like, it's a lot of good players. The two main players I could really think that really catch my eye. I know he's playing up Mateo for Ringer. I went to high school with him. He's a freaking beast. Like, just they made a video on him on the SoCal Cup Instagram. Everyone who like said something, like even the coach Nick Vogel, his club coach, everything they said about him is correct, and he just talked about how good of a player he is. And then Logan Hudnick, I heard the name going into this year, and then heard it from Craig Pisani, the Huntington coach. I'm like, he's good. But like, how good is he really going to be? Then I saw that he won Orange County Player of the Year. I'm like, okay, I take my words back, but he's a great player. Just a lot of good players I got to watch in the class. And then Wesley White, also from Huntington, lots of good Huntington players. And Teddy Mandelbaum, also from Maricosta. And then Daniel Booker from CDM is going to be really good as well. I know that for years. And then for the class of 2026, I saw newly committed Pepperdine commit JP Wardy. Watched him play. He's a beast.
That's my guy.
That's one of my good friends. And it's just really fun to watch him play every time. And then Ben Aguero as well from Huntington. He's going to be good. I don't know what his situation is, but he's good, fun to watch. Charlie Vonderay as well, the new Pearl Harbor setter. MB Surfield is very fun to watch them. Got to watch my buddy Wyatt Davis. And then their libero, Justin Warner. I don't know how he's still uncommitted. He had a great year for us for Costa. I know he's getting recruited a little bit, but I think he should be going somewhere. And then got to watch a little bit of Mountain View. I don't know who the opposite's name is. I wish I looked it up before this, and then him and Elon Taylor, who's going to UCLA. But those are the really main people that come my eye for the 17th area. And then the 18th area, Beta Bay looked really dominant. Winter Park looked good, Balboa Bay. But really shocked me is William Dryden had a really good weekend on what I saw. He's going to be going to UC Santa Barbara, but it just showed me how all these kids are coming from everywhere and just showing up and playing really good. And then for Rockstar, I know like Thatcher Merrick played really well. And then we have this other kid, Aiden Ferrister, who played very well, but he's not going to be going anywhere to do the roster stuff. But overall, that's who I saw who played very well this weekend.
Well, D-Bus, that was really good. And I think one thing that's important to mention, Teran, is obviously we all know what was going on in LA, and my hat's off to the Southern Cal Cup administration team. They were on it. They had shuttles for the athletes and the families that could go to local hotels. They were on it on social media saying this is what's going on. This is why things are safe. I respect why some clubs did not make the trip out. I get it. I understand. I did go there. While I was there, I felt very safe. I think D-Bus did a very good job explaining the tournament and the good teams. I think that some of the teams that was exciting to see is C2 Attack did really well for the 16s and 17s. They have not played in a lot of AAU tournaments, Teran, due to the ruling of certain kids can only be from so far to play, and C2 Attack attracts a lot of kids in their club from far areas. So they play in a lot of USA tournaments. They were able to have two teams go, and they played within the parameters and the rules of AAU, and they did really, really well. The 17s won the Open, and the 16s got third place. Beta Bay had another exciting performance, as they usually do. Balboa Bay, MB Surf, Mountain View. I'm currently working on the article, Teran, that will be posted in a few days. And speaking of lists, there's going to be another list on this article, but this one I make it very clear, like, hey, I can only see so many games at a time. I'm only one man. It's not like a Fab 50 list. It's just like, hey, you played really well this weekend. Good job. So hopefully that'll go smoothly. And yeah, just some really good things. And I'll also be probably posting out a list. And I know I'm going to be doing a podcast with some student athletes, and D-Bus is going to join next week. And we're going to kind of predict what's going to happen at nationals, which is exciting. And then I'll probably have an article released on Middle Hitter about some predictions. So all good stuff, all fun. And what's fun about predictions is if you don't like what we predict on Middle Hitter, you have an opportunity to tournament to prove us wrong. And we'll be the first to be like, yeah, we were wrong on that one. that club did much better than we thought. So kind of a little surprised. It might be interesting to get D-Bus's opinion. Triangle has a lot of talent, and they won the 16s, and now they're 17s a year later. And I would think they'd be the first to say, man, it didn't go our way. They did not advance the gold bracket. It was kind of a surprise. They have Demps on that team that's going to Penn State. So I was a little surprised by that. I thought they'd finish a little higher, but I know they have really talented athletes. But all in all, SoCal Cup was great. For kids from 12 years old all the way to 18. Teran, you couldn't believe how many kids are at that tournament. It's insane. Have you ever been to a tournament lately, Teran?
I have not. I've just been pretty busy for the most part, and trying to balance myself out, trying to find work and trying to make income and whatnot, and then trying to keep up with the VNL, trying to continue to create content for Set Point when it comes to like social media and whatnot, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to keep up with everything. Like clubs are so tough to to keep track of just because there's a lot of clubs. Otherwise, I would totally be down to top club volleyball. And
there's so many. There's just so many kids. I mean, it's crazy, Teran. When I was their age, and it's good. The game is growing, but you walk in there, you're like, oh my gosh, there was 2 full waves of 12 hours of just volleyball. It's really cool. But the game is growing at faster than it's ever grown. And cool to see clubs from Texas, Tennessee, Ohio, Utah that are really competitive. So it's fun.
Yeah, I can agree with going back to what Kevin said. I love how the sport's growing. I remember my freshman year, we were playing at the Anaheim Convention Center, and I just thought that was like a lot of teams. Like that was like really the first big 3 days tournaments for me, and then nationals obviously at the end of the year. But I love how the sport's growing, and it's just crazy to me how we are having to split up nationals now into 2 separate waves, just because the sport keeps growing. And I'm not saying that's good. Like I'm not saying that's bad in any way. I'm just saying like I love it. Like, even though a lot of people are like, crap, I'm really going to miss 4th of July. But, I mean, I'm like, you're going to go play volleyball. And then it just, like, shows how it keeps on growing. And I'm just really grateful that it has to be that way. Like, it's good. Like, it's a good problem to have.
And there's fireworks in Orlando, too, Teran. We still get to see fireworks,
And you don't get your hand blown off.
Yeah. And it's still in 4th of July over there. And then you're by the Magic Kingdom, Disney World. But what's also interesting that D-Bus was alluding to, not only like there's always been 2 waves and it's always been 8 days, but now there's like 3 divisions. It used to just be 1 or 2. It's just sports growing like crazy. AVCA is doing some incredible things at nationals. They're having a recruiting seminar and they're educating families and athletes, and they have the college coaches on a panel. I'm going to MC those events. So AVCA is there. The First Point's there. They're a great nonprofit organization that helps grow the game. They raise funds for colleges like UMass to start men's volleyball at a historically black college for Division I. They've started programs in Manhattan. They've helped Stanford revive their program when it was going to get cut. And they also help places like Tennessee, Alabama start high school boys volleyball in New Mexico. It's a beautiful thing. So they're pretty active at that nationals tournament as well.
Awesome. Great stuff right there. I appreciate you keeping me in the loop when it comes to that. Teran Rodriguez here with Kevin Pratte and Devin Busam of Middle Hitter. Just a few more questions, and then I'll let you both go. So when it comes to the 3C2A in men's volleyball, I'm pretty big on that, and Devin, as we know, is going to Orange Coast. So tell me, Kevin, do you have any familiarity with the 3C2A in men's volleyball? And then Devin, follow up with why did you choose OCC to go to following your graduation? By the way, congrats on that.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. I did not go to a community college, and I was just my journey took me to Pacific, and that's fine. But while I was at Pacific, we would get some guys from the community college ranks, or my former assistant coach, Jeff Hall, actually played a season at Orange Coast College where the famous and awesome Travis Turner is now coaching. He didn't play for Travis, but he was part of that. But when my journey from Nebraska, coaching with Coach Cook as a coaching as a grad assistant, then went back to my alma mater to help coach at Wortman at Pacific. I landed a community college head coaching job on the women's side at Mount San Jacinto, and we had some success there. And then I moved down to San Diego and worked community college down there. And I was so fortunate to be the president of men's volleyball. And Travis was in that room, Randy Tutorp, Tom Pestalacy was there, just a bunch of legends, Lance Walker. And it was really cool because I was pretty young. I was probably 27. They let me cut my teeth and get a really good leadership role. Why I think community college is really cool, Teran, is it's a great opportunity if you're late to the game and you're not getting recruited by UCLA or SC, or you're not maybe getting exactly where you want to go. You can go spend a semester, a year, 2 years at community college. You can transfer any semester and go. We had a kid actually come play for me, didn't even play in one set. He got good enough, and then it's like, go to Northridge. You don't need to play any. You don't need to lose any eligibility. And all the community college coaches like Nick at Golden West and Bridget at Santa Barbara and Dave at San Diego Mesa and Travis, they all think the same way. They're like, we are here to help these kids matriculate to a four-year college and have a great, cost-effective experience. I think community college is absolutely amazing. I think it is a great fit for students. I've also seen students come from Hawaii, from Utah, from Colorado. And yeah, they got to pay a little out-of-state tuition, but it's not still an incredible amount. And the volleyball, I'm sure D-Bus and you, Teran, will talk about, it's really good. I don't believe there's been too many Olympic men's basketball players that have played community college. There might be a few. There's definitely been some community college basketball players that have played in the NBA. But there are community college men's volleyball players that have played on our Olympic team. You know, there's been Riley Salmon was a community college guy. Pat Powers was a community college guy. Alan Knipe has been a community college player. David Niffen was a community college. He didn't play in the Olympics, but now he's coaching at UCI. Costi at Stanford was a community college guy. I mean, the list goes deep. Lance Walker, who played at Pepperdine. John Mayer, who had a successful AVP career, played at Pierce. Then he played at Pepperdine. Marv Dumphy is a community college guy. I mean, there's so many. And you're like, whoa. And, like, community college is a great resource for men and women. But for the men, it's just like they realistically go there. And it's like, hey, some of them do go to Northridge, do go to Pepperdine, do go to Purdue Fort Wayne. So it's some good stuff. And I'm sure D-Bus has a lot more to share. I know that Orange Coast College is really, really good. San Diego Mesa has been tearing it up. Nick at Golden West is doing phenomenal. He was on my podcast recently.
I heard that.
Yeah, he's great. And I love doing my podcast, KP here. It's similar to like what you're doing. It's really cool. So this is a cool platform you put me on, Teran, but I don't want to steal all the thunder. I know D-Bus has a lot of knowledge when it comes to community college. So,
I mean, yeah. So I after high school, like during high school, I'm like, I want to do the community college route, but I couldn't think of where I truthfully wanted to go. I live near El Camino, which is where all the kids go near me. I could go to Santa Barbara, which is also where a lot of Costa kids go, or I want to try to go for a little bit of school and volleyball in the location. So I thinking about some options, looking at all of them, and then realizing how Orange Coast College just made the most sense for me. Looking at all the options, I'm like, it's close enough to home. It's about 45 minutes to an hour away without traffic. But for me, I wanted to go for volleyball and the good academics that they offer there and the transfer rate for the schools. And it hit all the box, like all the pros I wanted. I wanted to go for volleyball, want to go to a nice school in a pretty location, and I want to be able to get to work with the men's volleyball team. So that was like what I really wanted to get to do. And then it took a lot of work on myself. I had to bet on myself to I always said to my parents, oh, I want to go to OCC. I want to go to OCC. That they were just telling me there's nothing we can do. You have to make it go happen for yourself. So I was at the Best of the West tournament for the boys volleyball. sorry, like we ended up losing that tournament. But the best part out of that tournament was getting to talk to the OCC assistant coach, coach who's there, Jack Stafford. He's a great mentor to me. He's meant a lot to me, and he's been helping me with everything I need. But the best part is he was there. Like, I met him, and I'm like, after we had our conversation, he gave me the opportunity and like an offer to be the manager for them. And I said to myself, this is where I want to go. Called both my parents, and I said, let's get me enrolled. And I loved everything about it. Went out for a visit. The atmosphere and the competitiveness is a lot better than I thought it would be. I went to a game and I just thought like, oh, these guys are just like, oh, late bloomers, like just wanting to play some volleyball. But then I realized like people come here to actually play volleyball, and then they're going to go transfer. I had this host on my visit at OCC named Jacob Pratte. I forget his story, but he ended up going to OCC 2 or 3 years, and then is now going to Ball State. I'm pretty sure. And it's just the success stories of community college I've heard so much about. And then talking to a teacher at school, he was telling me how he went to SMC for 2 years, then transferred to UC Irvine. Didn't play like really any sports, but he was just telling me how it's the best option. And I'm really excited to see what the future takes for me. I'm planning on taking 2 or 3 years at OCC, and then just trying to see what opportunity lines up for me at a good university. So really grateful for all the coaches, Coach Brian, Coach Travis, Coach Jack, and I forget the other coach's name right now, Coach Matt. Yeah, Coach Matt. And I just want to thank all of them for just giving me the right keys to success and just giving me this opportunity to get to work with them.
I love it. I love the junior college talk, as Larry B put in the chat room as well. So, Jacob Charette, he is fantastic. I think he was named the MVP of the 3C2A men's volleyball tournament last year. So yeah. I know who you're talking about. So one last thing before I let you both go, because I know Devin is a little pressed for time, but if you had any advice to give to a volleyball player that's looking to get recruited, tell me, what advice would you give to said volleyball player?
I would be patient with it. Most importantly, it's not going to come easy. Make sure you are wanting to go to school. Like as I listened to the KP Zoom before this, make schools that want you recruit, as much as they recruit you recruit them on yourself. Make sure that they find the schools that you feel like you genuinely fit in. First thing is how are you going to do academically at that school? Are your grades good? How other things you do really good? Like how do you perform in the classroom? How does that relate to the volleyball court as well? How does getting those good grades in the classroom, how is that going to help you with your recruiting process? So I just want to give them the advice of try really hard in school. And then trying really hard in school, then trying to become a good volleyball player is 2 really hard things to do. But if you can do both of those things, you're going to have really good success for recruiting. That's going to help you out a lot. Make sure, I would say, try to go to a lot of camps. And then make sure you are emailing coaches these films, letting them know how you're interested. Let them just know what you are most interested about their program. When I talk to the coaches where I want to go, I'm like, hey, I'm interested in your program, not just for volleyball. Do you want to be set up for life after volleyball? Do you want to go get a good degree from the school? I talked to my cousin who's 4 days older than me. He's he's 4 days younger than me. Reclassified. Anything you could do that you think will help you as a volleyball player, I would just try to learn from other people. Try to have a good mentorship. And my cousin basically reclassified, so now the class of 2026, and basically just showed me how getting opportunities and all these offers does not come easy. And he tries to go into every single camp he's going to. I'm going to hang out with him this summer, but he's like, dude, D-Bus, I'm so busy this summer, dude, because I'm just getting recruited and just keeping up these positive connections with these coaches. And don't feel too afraid to talk to them, even though there are those rules that you can't talk to them, but you can talk to them at all these camps though. Make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you're asking the right questions to them as well. And then just trying to make sure you leave an impact after the conversation. You're that was a really good thing that I mentioned, where it's maybe I shouldn't have said that, but make sure you're doing all the right things. Make sure you're following also all the rules as well. But make sure you are making sure these coaches remember you for something. What is something that you left a mark on? What you do during the, let's say a kid gets an injury during the game, but you are the first making the difference when other people aren't doing that first. So just try to make yourself truly different than another recruit. Oh,
yeah, it's well said. And Teran, if I may, I think the most important thing, just to, in a quick nutshell, to tell the listeners, I think it's really important to scan your environment. I think if you're at Rockstar, like I would go to Matt Furbringer and be like, hey, what do you think? Matt's very knowledgeable at recruiting. He knows how to do it. He's a big name in the game. He probably can give you some pretty good feedback. If you're at Balboa Bay, I would go to Travis. Okay, but there are kids that are like in Oklahoma, in Texas, and Nashville, and some of those places do have people that know exactly what to do, but some don't. Some have a high school coach that's like, I love volleyball, but I don't know who Travis is. I don't know who Alan Knipe is. And they're maybe not as lucky as you guys in Southern California. You know all these guys. So I think it's important to scan your environment. And if you do not have someone in your life that could advocate for you, that's not your dad, not your mom, or not your uncle, you got to go seek that. Just like Devin said, he's like, I got to go seek going to OCC, and he made it happen. So that's where my recruiting services come into play. There's also other people out there, but I think that's you got to have someone advocating for you. You got to get bigger, faster, stronger, and you got to do really well grade-wise. And then Devin talked about camps and all that good stuff, playing club. But at the end of the day, do the sport because you love it, Teran. Do just like you do this podcast and live stream, you love it, right? Why do I do middle hitter? I don't do it to make money. I don't do it. I do it because I love the sport and I want to help grow the sport, right? So do it for passion. So play volleyball for passion. And if you do some good things, there's always room to play college volleyball. There's a lot of different levels: NAIA, junior college, D3, D2, D1.
Beautifully said, both of you. I greatly appreciate having the both of you on. Any other shout outs or thank yous you want to give out before we head on into a commercial break and before I let you two go?
Well, before we go, first off, thanks so much for having me, Teran. I love what you're doing. Like I said, you're a trailblazer. You're doing it your way. You're interviewing a lot of people. I think that's great. You're growing the game. I think it's also important for us student athletes, all those trainers that helped me, my college coaches, Coach Wortman, and my mentors. Thank you for all those people that are supporting the foundation and supporting KP's crew and all that. Thank you. And, also just been really fortunate to have really good family members that are very supportive, that are all about the foundation. So got to give them a shout out. But again, Teran, can't thank you enough. Thanks for all you're doing.
No problem. Thank you for the support. Devin?
Thank you for having me on. I've listened to many years of since my freshman year interviews. Listening to them, always wondering, like, hey, am I ever going to meet this guy? Junior and senior year was the year, and just really grateful that I got this experience. It was very last minute, obviously, for me to join, but just grateful for the experience. I've listened to this before, so it's very fun to be on this aspect of it, but I'm just really grateful that all the opportunities that I've been able to get for the past few months, like getting to work with Kevin, going to OCC, being on this podcast, grateful for everything I got to do at Maricosta, but just want to say thank you. I want to thank my family for always being there for me, but otherwise, just thank you for having me on. So it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I appreciate having the two of you on. I hope to see you two real soon. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Kevin Pratte and Devin Busam. Kevin Pratte is the head honcho of Middle Hitter, and then Devin Busam, the team manager of Maricosta Boys Volleyball, going to be heading off to Orange Coast College. I appreciate you, gentlemen. Well, I'll be taking a quick commercial break. When I come back, I'll be talking some men's and women's VNL, and then I'll talk a little AVP. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IA Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of that sports. We'll be right back after this. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Hey.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing sponsors. We greatly appreciate them being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. All of that is sports. And thank you once again to my guests, Kevin Pratte and Devin Busam. I greatly appreciate them. Also, definitely check out our website at iesportsradio.com and whatnot. So with that being said, let's close off the show. I know that we're now kind of bleeding into the 1 hour mark, but the rest of the way shouldn't be as long. But again, thank you to my guests. I greatly appreciate them for being on here. So let's talk some men's VNL. So men's VNL, the U.S. went 2-2 as Cooper Robinson was one of the amazing standouts for the team. He was great, in my opinion. So the first match for the U.S. that was actually against the Ukraine. So Ukraine was actually playing in its first year in the VNL and its first ever matchup against the U.S. And unfortunately for the U.S., just a lot of inexperience, a lot of mistakes, unfortunately, here and there, as the U.S. fell in straight sets to the Ukraine, 25-22, 25-20, and 25-23. There were some bright spots, obviously. Gabby Garcia and Cooper Robinson were some bright spots. You also had Andrew Rowan running the offense, and Kyle D'Agostino was also the libero. I mean, I wish I could have seen. I mean, personally, I wish Mason Briggs was the libero, but I digress. He eventually got to see some playing time in the later matches, so there was that right there. So it was a tough season opener or tough VNL opener for the U.S., but a lot to be positive about. Then the U.S. actually reverse swept Iran. So this was one of the more positive games as the U.S. actually was down 0-2 in the match. Then they were down 19-18, but then they closed off on a 7-2 run to take that third set. And then the fourth set, they were down 23-22, round off the last 3 points to take that fourth set. And then the fifth set, they actually led all the way up. They eventually led 6-5, and they never relinquished the lead. They did have a little bit of some dramatics until 16-15 in favor of the U.S., where Patrick Gassman dealt the walk-off service ace, which I thought was pretty darn cool as well. You had Kyle Hobis standing out in that game, the former CSUN star. So very impressive win. And then as for the U.S. In their third match against Slovenia, they had their opportunities. The U.S. did fall to Slovenia in 4 sets, 25-22, 27-25, 20-25, and 25-23. But I will say I was impressed with how the U.S. competed in that matchup. I want to say Slovenia had a majority of its Olympic team from last year. So all in all, it wasn't a bad result. I mean, lots of positives to take away from that, just because the U.S. just has a lot of youth and inexperience, and they don't have that veteran presence like a majority of these other teams do. So tough one for the U.S. losing to Slovenia, but honestly, a lot of promise on their team. And then closing off the U.S. side of things in the VNL on the men's side, you had the U.S. beating Cuba in 4 sets. The first 2 sets were looking really clean for the U.S. This was one of the matchups that I was a little afraid of. I thought the U.S. was kind of going to have to grind this one out, and they kind of did, as Cuba just hammered them in the 3rd set, and then the U.S. needed to hold off a late run from Cuba to take that 4th set. But all in all, 2-2 is very impressive for this young U.S. team. And under the new heel of Karch Karai, I think this U.S. team is definitely looking toward the glass being half full as opposed to being half empty. Will the competition get tougher? Absolutely. But I think this U.S. team is going to be ready for it. And this week was just to get the feet wet for all the young bucks and youngsters. I think for this U.S. team, there's a lot of positives to take away from this week, not just from the players, but from a coaching standpoint as well. So all in all for the U.S., I think they've got a lot of good to basically take away from. And I think this young U.S. team is going to continue to get better because none of these players have played internationally, or they haven't played on the professional scene. So some of these players are actually getting the firsthand experience of playing professional ball, and some are passing the test with flying colors as well. But all in all, it was a great week for the U.S. Again, 2-2 isn't the most glamorous of records, but it sure beats being 0-4 and 1-3, but I digress. So the rest of the VNL was as follows: Poland being the only 4-2 team, or 4-0 team after the first week. They're the only undefeated team remaining. They took down Netherlands in 4 sets to kick off the VNL. Then you had Japan sweeping China, Serbia taking down Turkey in 4, Italy taking down Bulgaria in 4. I mentioned Ukraine beating the U.S. You had Argentina taking down France in 4, Brazil taking down Iran in straight sets, Canada taking down Germany in 5. You had Slovenia taking down Cuba. By the way, some of the sites when it came to the VNL in week 1 were as follows. One was played in Brazil, the other was played in Canada, and one was played in China. So 3 different sites and 3 different parts of the VNL being played at. So the next day, being June 12th, you had China sweeping Serbia, Poland taking down Japan in 4, Italy reverse sweeping Germany. You had Cuba taking down Brazil. Then you had Argentina taking down Canada in 5. Cuba took down Brazil in 5, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, as I mentioned, the U.S. reverse swept Iran. There were a lot of 5-setters. Out of the 6 games that were played on June 12th, 4 of those 6 went 5 sets, and 5 of those 6 were decided in 4 or 5 sets. So on June 13th, we had Japan sweeping Serbia, Netherlands taking down Turkey in 4, Bulgaria sweeping Argentina, Ukraine taking down Cuba in 5. This Ukraine team is pretty special for being its first time in the VNL. Then you had France taking down Italy in 4 in I want to say that was a rematch of last year's Olympic gold medal match, but I digress. You had Slovenia taking down Iran in 4 to close off the day. That was the Friday. Then on Saturday, we had China taking down Netherlands in 4. Poland swept Turkey. Brazil reverse swept Ukraine. The fact that Ukraine was even up 2-0 on Brazil, keep in mind they did play in Rio de Janeiro, is pretty impressive. But Brazil, being the talented team that they are and kind of having the home court advantage, I felt that was a big difference maker. And then Slovenia beat the U.S. in 4, like I mentioned. France took down Canada in 5. That was a big win for the French. You had Bulgaria taking down Germany in 5. And then Japan swept Netherlands to close off Saturday's matches. Then Sunday, you had Turkey sweeping China, Poland sweeping Serbia, Brazil sweeping Slovenia, Italy taking down Argentina in 4, Iran taking down Ukraine in 5 for their first VNL win. You had Germany taking down France in 4, which was a huge upset. I tried to tell you all that was kind of a good matchup to watch for, and indeed it was. Sorry if I'm adjusting my camera. And then, like I mentioned, U.S. took down Cuba in 4, and then Canada took down Bulgaria in straight sets. So that is pretty much that for the VNL in terms of the men's side from this past week. So next time we'll be seeing the U.S. in action on the men's side. They'll be playing in Chicago. Yes, Chicago, Illinois. And oh man, I wish I could be at that. Oh, I would give anything to try to be at the VNL in Chicago in the Windy City. But definitely, if you're in the Chicago area, go to that. I would definitely mean the world for not just the U.S. men's team, but for all of the teams that are playing in the VNL. But that's not for another week. I'll be previewing that next week. So there you have it right there. So jumping on over to I was going to go over some AVP, but let's jump on over to the women's VNL. So this is going to be the preview for week 2. So the U.S. will have Dana Retke, the former Wisconsin national champion Badger, who was on last year's Olympic team. She'll be joining the roster. And then you've got making the debut, Lexi Rodriguez of Nebraska and Breon Butler of Texas. So that's going to be fun to watch. I know Nebraska fans are going to be over the rainbow seeing Lexi Rodriguez in a USA uniform. I think it's going to be awesome sauce for them. So if you're a Nebraska fan, definitely tune into this week. I know the first week was pretty, I wouldn't say bad, but pretty forgettable, but they can build off this 1-3 record, and they'll be getting some Olympic help from Dana Retke. And I hope she gets more playing time as opposed to the Olympics where she hardly was used, which really sucks. Just because I'm a big fan of Dana Retke. I really think she's a fantastic player. And when I saw her in the friendlies matchup, she had some great floor defense, and she's also a great interviewer. But first match is tomorrow or late tomorrow when Italy takes on Bulgaria. Then the next day, being Wednesday, you've got Japan, Thailand, Korea, Canada, France, Germany. I think that could be, I don't know. Maybe that can be a good matchup. I'm not sure. Then you got Czechia, China, then Belgium versus Brazil. Oh, goodness. Hold on. Yeah, Belgium, Brazil. Then you got Netherlands, Poland, then Dominican Republic, Turkey, and then closing off Wednesday's matches, Serbia and the U.S. Serbia is going to be at a little bit more full strength, and it seems like Serbia always seems to get the better of the U.S. when it comes to the VNL. I don't know why, I don't know how, but the U.S. is going to really need to be prepared for Serbia just because Serbia did not have most of its roster in week 1. So now the U.S. is going to need to come fully prepared. Then on Thursday, we have Thailand, Italy, Bulgaria, China, Belgium, Dominican Republic, USA, Poland, Canada, Turkey, and closing off Thursday's matches, Germany, Serbia. Then Friday, we've got Bulgaria, Czechia, Japan, Italy. That's going to be a barn burner right there. That's going to be a fun matchup. Then you got Korea, Belgium, France, Netherlands, Canada, Brazil. I think that can kind of be a sneaky good matchup, but Canada only has one opposite hitter on their roster, being Anna Smrek of Wisconsin. And then closing off for Friday's matches, you've got Germany, Poland, and then jumping into Saturday, we've got Czechia, Thailand, Japan, China. That's going to be a real fun one. That's going to be an exciting matchup. That is rivalry matchup big time. Then you got Dominican Republic, Brazil, Netherlands, USA. That's going to be a major flashback Saturday right there, because last time I got to see the U.S. and Netherlands was actually the friendlies matchup last year in Long Beach. Oh boy, that was some fun times, and I can't wait till I hope set point I hope July 10th will fall on a Monday. No, it's going to fall on a Thursday. Gosh darn it! But I was hoping to have reminiscence of that day, but I digress. Then you have Korea, Turkey, following Netherlands, USA, then France, Serbia, then Bulgaria, Thailand, and then closing off the matches on Sunday, you've got Czechia, Japan, Belgium, Canada, Germany, Netherlands, China, Italy. That's going to be another fun matchup right there. Korea, Dominican Republic, France, USA, Turkey, Brazil. That will be really fun. And then Serbia, Poland. I'm going to be interested to see how Serbia can do this week. Yes, they are winless, but honestly, they definitely will have most of their roster as opposed to week 1. And then I'm also interested to see how Korea does, just because Korea, they're also winless too, but they actually came so close to taking down Czechia, and they challenged the U.S. in that second set, but to no avail. But I think that Korea will be a little bit more better prepared this time around, especially since they've been battle tested and whatnot. So that's that for the women's VNL. So the sites for this week will take place in Hong Kong, China. You've got Istanbul, Turkey, and then Belgrade, Serbia, or Belgrade, Serbia. So Serbia, Turkey, and China are the sites when it comes to this week's VNL of week 2 on the women's side. But as for the U.S., it's pretty much Lexi Rodriguez. Rachel Fairbanks will be the alternate. And then you've also got Dana Redke, like I mentioned, and then Breon Butler, Lexi Rodriguez will be making their VNL debut. And that's pretty much the same roster as last week. So there you have it right there. And that'll pretty much do it for the women's VNL. Let me know what you all think when it comes to the women's VNL. So closing off the show will be me talking about week 3 of the AVP League. So that since our little interview with Kevin and Devin went a little longer, I was going to save the class of 2027 topic for next week. But honestly, I'll save it for next week and the week beyond, because we've barely scratched the surface when it comes to some of the notable names. But when it came to this past week, the week 3 of the AVP League took place at Wayfair Arena. So this took place on Friday and Saturday as the Palm Beach Passion took on the New York Nitro to start off the AVP League week 3. And it was actually Trevor Crabb and Phil Dalhouser taking on Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sanders. So remember how I said Trevor Crabb was retiring last year? Well, reports of his retirement were greatly exaggerated. So Trevor Crabb is back. And right off the bat, when it came to week 3 of the AVP League, we had a crab boil. So I thought it was a crab boiler, but it's crab boil. So it's basically Crabb versus Crabb, Taylor Crabb versus Trevor Crabb. And in this matchup, we actually had Trevor Crabb and Phil Dalhouser taking down Team Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb in straight sets, 15-13 and 15-10. Then on the women's matchup between Palm Beach and New York, you had Melissa Jimana Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson taking down Corinne Quiggle and Megan J. Rice in straight sets, 15-6 and 15-13. And then between the Miami Mayhem and the Brooklyn Blaze, you had on the men's side, Kame Shulk and James Shaw taking down Sean Cook and Brian Miller, 19-21, 15-8, and 15-12 to win that matchup. And then on the women's side, you had the Brooklyn Blaze of Lexi Denneberg and Julia Donlin, formerly known as Julia Scholes, taking down Kelly Cheng and Molly Shaw, 16-18, 15-8, and 10. 18-16, 8-15, and 15-10. And then jumping over to Saturday, we had the Palm Beach Passion taking on the Miami Mayhem, which was a little bit of an in-state rivalry. But the Palm Beach Passion were able to stand on business. On the men's side, we had Trevor Crabb and Phil Dalhouser taking down Kame Shulk and James Shaw in a 3-set barn burner, 13-13, 13-15, 15-13, and 15-10. And then the Palm Beach Passion on the women's side took down the Miami Mayhem on the women's side. Melissa Jimana Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson took down Kelly Cheng and Molly Shaw, 18-20, 15-11, and 15-10. And then closing off the AVP League, we had the New York Nitro and the Brooklyn Blaze. Team Taylor Sander, and Taylor Crabb took down Sean Cook and Brian Miller in a 3-set barn burner, 15-11, 12-15, and 15-11. And then the last match of week 3 of the AVP League, you had Lexi Denneberg and Julia Donlin taking down Megan J. Rice and Corinne Quiggle, 12-15, 15-13, and 15-13. Nice little matchup right there to end the AVP League. So when it comes to the AVP League, the Palm Beach Passion went a perfect 4-0, which I thought was pretty impressive just because there's a lot of parity in the AVP League. And on the women's side, I want to say Melissa and Brandy are both undefeated. But you got to remember, those two are Olympians. Melissa Jimana Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson are. And they both finished second in the Beach Olympics last year. They got silver, which I thought was pretty darn impressive. So looking at the AVP League standings, you've got the LA Launch still in first place at 4-0. As they will be playing this week. Austin Aces will be playing this week. The Miami Mayhem will be playing this week. And the New York Nitro will be playing this week when it comes to the AVP League. So this week will be taking place in New York. So New York is the next stop for the AVP League in week 4. And then after that, it'll be the halfway point of the AVP League, which I think is pretty cool. After this week, the AVP will take a little break when it comes to the AVP League, which is totally understandable because they've got a few tournaments here and there. So I think it's pretty cool right there, and I think it's awesome that the AVP League is starting to boil down. So this week it's going to be in East Hampton, New York, and then after that, the AVP League will take a little bit of a hiatus and break. Well, not hiatus, but a little bit of a break, and then it'll be back in action in a few more weeks. So it's going to be on Saturday and Sunday, so as opposed to like Friday and Saturday. So Saturday you've got the Austin Aces and the Dallas Dream. Nice little Texas matchup to start things off. And then following that, it's the this is real. Oh yeah. So the women's side, it's the Austin Aces and the Dallas Dream. And then you've got the women's Brooklyn Blaze and the women's New York Nitro. And then after that, it's the men's Brooklyn Blaze and New York Nitro. And then you got the men's Austin Aces and Dallas Dream. So this week is kind of a little bit backwards, but I digress. And then Sunday, you've got the women's Dallas Dream taking on the New York Nitro. And then you got the men's Austin Aces taking on the Brooklyn Blaze. Then you got the women's Austin Aces taking on the Brooklyn Blaze following that. And then following that, you've got the men's Dallas Dream taking on the men's New York Nitro. So this week in the AVP League is going to be a little bit flip-flopped as opposed to previous weeks. So it's not just going to be one pair taking on the other pair of one team, and then the opposite gender taking on the same gender as well. So there you go. But yeah, after that, this week will be the final week before we reach the semi-halfway point of the AVP League. And you got to remember that 6 teams will qualify for the AVP League playoffs and whatnot, which I think is pretty awesome if you ask me. Last year it was only 4 teams, so there's a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to the AVP League playoffs. So after this week, when it comes to the AVP League, the next AVP League will be in week 5 when the AVP heads down to the Intuit Dome when you guessed it, the AVP is coming to Los Angeles. So that's pretty awesome if you ask me. I think it's going to be cool to see the AVP come to Los Angeles. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be there, but one can only hope. And then after this week, we've got more tournaments from the AVP League. You've got the Virginia Beach Open next week. And then the week after that, being 4th of July week, you've got the Denver Open. And then the following week, you've got the Walpaca Open, which is July 9th through the 11th. So there you have it right there in terms of the AVP League. The AVP League update and AVP altogether update as well. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I want to thank everyone that tuned in. I really appreciate you. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I greatly appreciate you. Huge thank you to Kevin Pratte and Devin Busam for being guests on today's show. I really do appreciate it. Their support for Set Point and their support for all of volleyball does not go unnoticed. And I also have to thank Kevin Pratte as well for all of his contributions and his support of Set Point as well. So for my guests, Devin Busam and Kevin Pratte, and for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself an amazing week. Enjoy all the volleyball action, whether it's professional or club or anything of that sort. And I'll see you all next week for another episode of Set Point. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you soon. Peace.